It's good to have you join us on the news beat on Green Growth TV. The headlines. Trump signs actions to pull US out of Paris climate agreement amid disaster. Tinubu to set up investigation committee for tanker explosion. Soldiers miners clash, kills 7 people in Ghana. Colombian guerrilla violence displaces thousands, kills 80. Monday's fire outbreak kills 8 in Serbia. I am Divine Alex. Now the details. Starting with the newly elected US President Donald Trump has signed executive actions on Monday the 20th to cement his intent to double down on fossil fuels as well as reverse America's progress on climate change and clean energy, which includes signing orders to pull United States out of the Paris Climate Agreement. Trump's Day One actions come as climate change-fueled fires ravaged Southern California following the globe's hottest year on record, during which 2 major hurricanes, Helene and Milton, devastated the southeast. During his inauguration into office on Monday, his speech said he will declare a national energy emergency, though United States is producing more oil currently. Trump seems wanting to streamline permitting and review regulations that impose undue burdens on energy production and use, including mining and processing of non-fuel minerals. According to the list from his press, the U.S. president also intends to take action to end land and water leasing for wind energy and undo the Biden administration's actions that promoted electric vehicles.
The next item here is the withdrawal from the Paris Climate Treaty. We're going to save over $1 trillion by withdrawing from that treaty. And the next item, sir, is a letter that will be transmitted to the United Nations explaining that we are withdrawing from the Paris Climate Treaty.
More so, Trump views energy prices as central to his mission to address widespread frustrations with the cost of living, as he argues that slashing red tape will help drive down energy prices and fight overall inflation. Moving on to California, where at least 27 people lost their lives, including some who died trying to prevent the fires from engulfing their homes and destroying thousands of structures in the California wildfire incident, a series of ferocious wildfire that erupted on January 7 and rumbled across the Los Angeles, fueled by powerful winds and dry conditions. Having ravaged thousands of structures, several reactions have been recorded, which include US President Donald Trump, among others. To mention a few, the Zambia Agriculture Research Institute Chilanga, Lusaka, Zambia, has said that the climate change is characterized by the frequency and intensity of natural disasters in the case of the current devastation caused by wildfire in USA's California, stating that the monitors of the outbreak of wildfire in American landmass will note the frequencies and intensities to be on the rise, which is a very characteristic of climate change. On his part, the Chief Executive Officer, CEO, and founder of Peak Africa Consultants, Somalia Salman Samwade, has explained that the wildfire in California are closely linked to climate change, as over the past climate change has contributed to increased temperatures, prolonged droughts, and altered precipitation patterns, all of which create conditions more conducive to wildfires. Adding to these reactions is the Show Hope Care for Orphans and Less Privileged initiatives, Ibrahim Thomas Wakewa, who added that more unknown effects of climate change are still waiting the chance to hit the world, relating what happened to California to be a lesson and enough campaign to stand climate control. Let's move to Nigeria, where at least 86 persons died and 55 others were injured on Saturday the 18th while escaping from a fallen tanker. This is as a result of tanker exploding after crashing, killing the people who had rushed to collect fuel from the scene. It was reported that the tanker had overturned and spilled its contents in the Suleja area of north-central Niger State, and exploded moments after people began scooping up fuel, killing dozens and leaving about 55 others injured, including rescuers. While those injured in Saturday's explosion are being treated in nearby hospitals, the emergency management Nigeria has seen a number of similar incidents in recent months. However, fuel prices have increased by more than 400% in the last 18 months following bold economic policies by Nigerian President Bola Tinubu to include the removal of long-standing fuel subsidies, leaving Independent Petroleum Marketers Association of Nigeria, IPMAN, with news of fuel reduction announcements yet to be widely implemented properly. These changes have put millions of people into poverty, with many forced to turn to desperate measures for survival. Meanwhile, the government has insisted that its policies are aimed at strengthening the economy. Still in Nigeria, where President Bola Tinubu says he would set up a high-powered committee to investigate the recurrence of tanker explosions and implement safety measures to forestall the tragedy. The Minister of Information, Mohammed Idris, said this on Sunday, the 19th, at the palace of the Emir of Suleja, where he visited to commiserate with victims of Saturday, the 18th tanker explosion in Diko Junction, in the Gwara local government area of Niger State. He said members of the committee would be drawn from the Ministry of Information and National Orientation, the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, the Independent Petroleum Marketers Association of Nigeria, IPMAN, Tanker Drivers Associations, and other stakeholders. The minister also said enlightenment campaigns on the safe movement of fuel tankers, road safety habits, and the dangers of scooping leaked fuel would be carried out by his ministry. Meanwhile, the minister Mohammed was accompanied to the state by the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development, among others. Let's move to Ghana. At least 7 people have been killed in clash with soldiers on duty at a mine in the Central Ashanti region, according to the army official. The Ghana Armed Forces said about 60 illegal miners had forced their way into the mine run by the global giant Anglo Gold Ashanti and had fired upon the soldiers, where they were intercepted, which prompted the soldiers to retaliate in self-defense. On the other hand, reports say a representative of the miners denied that they had been armed. Following this news of the deaths, there were protests in Obuasi town where several buses were set on fire as angry residents poured onto the company's grounds following the killings, burning at least 3 vehicles and other equipment belonging to the company. Meanwhile, a statement from the presidency, which indicated that 8 people had died, said the president of Ghana, John Mahama, has ordered investigations into the matter, stating that anyone found to have acted unlawfully will be brought to justice. Now let's move to Colombia, where the officials reported on Sunday the 19th that a fresh outbreak of guerrilla violence amid a faltering peace process in Colombia has left more than 80 people dead, including civilians, and displaced around 11,000 in just 4 days. The reports say residents fled for their lives as the army deployed some 5,000 troops to the cocaine-growing Catatumbo region at the center of a fast-escalating territorial war. According to Governor William Villamizar of the Norte de Santander department, civilians found themselves caught in the middle, and by Sunday it was estimated that more than 80 people have lost their lives. However, the National Liberation Army, ELN, armed group officials said there is a launch assault in Catatumbo last Thursday on a rival formation comprised of ex-members of the now-defunct FARC guerrilla force, who kept fighting after it disarmed in 2017. Reports also captured terrified residents carrying backpacks and belongings on overladen motorcycles, boats, or crammed onto the backs of open trucks, fleeing the region over the weekend. Hundreds found refuge in the town of Tibu, where several shelters were set up, while others crossed the border to Venezuela, for some a return to a country from where they had fled economic and political upheaval. Meanwhile, Venezuela has announced the launch of a special operation to assist the civilian population displaced from Colombia, hundreds of families, according to the government in Caracas. You are still listening to the Newsbeat on Green Growth TV. More stories ahead. Please stay with us. You are welcome back. Mozambique's new president, Daniel Chapo, who has been sworn in at a low-key ceremony in the capital, Maputo, that was marred by an opposition boycott following heavily disputed elections. In his first presidential address, Chapo, aged 48, pledged to devote all energies to promoting unity and human rights in a nation scarred by post-election violence. Recall that a local civil society group said that more than 300 people have been killed in clashes with security forces since elections in October the past year, while 8 people were killed by police on Wednesday as they protested against the inauguration, according to the head of election observer group Plataforma Decide, Dr. Wilka Diaz. However, reports say most of the victims were supporters of defeated presidential candidate Venancio Mondlane, who had called for a national strike in defiance of Chapo taking office. For its part, the government had declared Wednesday a public holiday, with the streets of Maputo largely deserted and most businesses shut. Meanwhile, Chapo had won the election with 65% of the vote, extending the 49-year rule of the Frelimo party. And in South Africa, where reports fingers the mine story of Mzwandile Nkwayi as he narrates how he lowered into the South African mine in a red metal cage attached to a hoist above ground. The first thing that struck him was the smell of dead, decayed bodies. He recounted that the allegations that the miners resorted to eating human flesh in order to survive were also made by other miners who were rescued in December, in statements submitted to the High Court. Nkwayi, a former convict known locally as Sasha, lives in the township of Kuma that was close to the disused mine in Stilfern. The 36-year-old who had served 7 years in prison for robbery volunteered to go down to help with the rescue effort, but even though he wanted to help, the 25-minute journey down the 2 kilometers deep shafts filled him with terror. Finally, in Serbia, a fire broke out early Monday the 20th at a retirement home on the outskirts of the Serbian capital, Belgrade, killing 8 people and injuring 7. The police officer overseeing the emergency response, Luka Kosic, said there were around 30 people inside when the fire broke out at 3:30 a.m. The Labour Minister Nemanja Starovic told local media that unfortunate incident claimed about 8 lives in the fire, adding that members of the emergency response sector reacted very promptly and successfully evacuated 13 people. Meanwhile, rescue officials earlier said that at least 6 people had died in the incident. That's all on the Newsbeat. Many thanks for watching. Until next time, I am Divine Alex for Green Growth TV.